I'll just say. Hi, could all the folks who are on Teams, if you are not a member of council, please remember to disable your camera? Thank you.
All right, I'm now going to call the public hearing of Tuesday, March the 11th to order. Now, this meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means. As such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. And we don't have anyone coming in today. Okay. All right. So members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be posted on X at Van City Clerk. Now, in case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the glass exit there. Go past the post and hang a left, walk down the stairs. If for whatever reason that door is obstructed, we do have 4 exits here, and you'll be, we'll give you more instructions, but basically we'll exit in a very orderly way. And if you, for whatever reason, if you need assistance, if you have mobility challenges, please wait in your location and we'll get someone to help you and guide you to a safe location. I'd also like to highlight the fact that we do have a defibrillator at the end of the hall. So if you're feeling a little bit of chest pain or you smell toast, let us know. We'll come get you as well. I also want to acknowledge that we're hosting today's public hearing on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and the love and care they show this land that we get to live, work, and play on. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to unlearn what we've learned in the past, learn the true history as to what's happened on these lands. If we do that, we're going to build an incredibly bright future full of love and prosperity for all of us. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our amazing team members at the City of Vancouver. And, some of us been working side by side with you for the last 2.5 years, some a lot longer, like Councillor Kirby Young here. Anyways, she's very young. I'm just saying, you've been here for a while. So anyways, I'm digging a hole for myself here. Carrying on. Anyways, you know what? For the public's benefit, I can tell you our people are absolutely amazing. The people who choose to be here, they come to work every single day to help us build this great city. Absolutely blown away. And so thank you very much for your immense contributions and the love and care you show this city here. With that, can we please get a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Sim is in the chair. Councillor Kirby Young. Councillor Dominato.
Present.
Councillor Bly has a leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Fry has a leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner. Councillor Joe. You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, where are we here? Okay, so now before we begin, I do have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to mayor and council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers representing 4 or more individuals or groups, including themselves, will have 8 minutes to speak. Each individual or group being represented must confirm their representation by introducing themselves either in person or online. Individuals represented by another speaker cannot also speak independently. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on X at Van City Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online mayor and council public hearing feedback web form. This link will also be posted on X. Any speakers who pre-registered with presentations are reminded that the public live feed has a slight delay. To navigate through the slides of your presentation, please say next so the clerk may advance your slides. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant of interest. Nope, great. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability to amend the Zoning and Development Bylaw and other consequential amendments to the Parking Bylaw, the Subdivision Bylaw, Sign Bylaw, the Street and Traffic Bylaw, and various land use documents to implement the recommended regulatory changes to advance 3331 permitting targets directed by Council in July 2024. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. One piece of correspondence in support, 5 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Now, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Now, there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. And today we have our team members from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Sorry, just checking. Are we good that the presentation's up? Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Haley Hoyka, and I am a planner with Citywide and Regional Planning. The presentation I will be sharing with you will provide an overview of several amendments to the Zoning and Development Bylaw, which have been identified as opportunities to improve the permitting process and therefore helping to expedite the delivery of housing and jobs. Last July, Council directed staff to bring forward amendments to the Zoning and Development Bylaw to implement 3 regulatory changes related to horizontal angle of daylight, mechanical equipment on rooftops, and acoustic reports. These recommendations in the July report were developed through the Permit Improvement Program with advice from external architects and developers. The amendments recommended in this report include the Council-directed changes from the July 2024 report, as noted in the first box. Staff have found additional amendments to further this direction, as noted in the second box. These changes include updates related to zero-emission building incentives, renovations involving in-suite storage, relaxations for public uses, and home-based business regulations. The first amendment recommended in the report is related to the horizontal angle of daylight regulation, or HAD. This regulation is found in various district schedules and is intended to ensure access to natural light. It includes complex angle calculations and requirements that are similar to building setbacks. The proposed amendment would eliminate the HAD requirement and rely instead on existing setbacks and habitable room window requirements to ensure access to light. The regulation would also be renamed to reflect the changes. Under Section 10 of the bylaw, various building elements are allowed to exceed a building's maximum height. The area of certain rooftop elements is limited to 10%. The July 2024 report recommended removing the area limit for mechanical equipment only. However, through internal reviews, the amendment proposed in this report is to remove the 10% area limit for all of the elements listed above. Removal of this limit will simplify the regulation and allow more flexibility to accommodate programming of various elements that takes place on the rooftop. Acoustic reports are required in various district schedules and CD1 bylaws. The July 2024 report recommended removing this requirement, as acoustic reports recommend noise mitigation measures at the design stage in the development process when these details aren't determined, and because building technology has advanced in the years since the acoustic report requirements were introduced. This report therefore recommends the removal of acoustic report requirements from Section 10 and impacted district schedules. As a consequential amendment, all end zones are proposed to be renamed and rezoned back to their base zones. FSR incentives are in place to encourage the development of zero-emission buildings. Currently, this incentive for buildings in the RA, R1, and RT districts is limited to buildings that are less than 465 meters squared. The proposed amendment will open up this incentive to more buildings by removing the size limit to be eligible and instead limit the floor area exclusion to a maximum of 88 meters squared. To encourage in-suite storage in multiple dwelling buildings, floor area for storage is often exempt. This exemption can be problematic for renovations, as staff spend time confirming the floor area previously approved to verify if an exemption was given. This could result in renovations that incorporate storage into the larger living area, putting their building over their maximum allowable floor area. In order to allow renovations and to free up staff time spent on storage floor area verification, the proposed amendment would clarify that exempt in-suite storage floor area would continue to be excluded, and that this exclusion would be applicable 2 years post-occupancy. Many public projects are required to go through rezoning processes or to the Board of Variance to allow for minor relaxations for items such as setbacks, largely because they are located in low-density residential districts. For this reason, Section 5 already allows discretion for elementary and secondary schools. The proposed amendment would expand on this relaxation to include the uses listed here. The final amendment proposed includes an update to the home-based business regulations. Currently, home-based business regulations prohibit age-restricted business types. To clarify and align with senior governments, the proposed amendment would prohibit sales of tobacco, vapor, and nicotine products in home-based businesses. In summary, the proposed amendments recommended today have been identified as opportunities to improve the permitting process. Thank you, and staff are available to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Please note that the GM of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability, City of Vancouver is the applicant for this item. With that, would the applicant like to, already done that. Sorry, no, that's actually right. Would the applicant like to present the application?
Yes.
No?
Oh, sorry.
Kind of done that already. Guess the opportunity. Okay, perfect. All right, there's a little bit of confusion there. We're good? All right, thank you very much. Just a formality there. It didn't really make sense, but okay. Are there any questions from council to our team members or the applicant team? Noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. And yes, we have some. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I had some questions around the acoustical report requirement removal. Can you explain a little bit around the rationale of why we're proposing this? Is it a cost savings, a time savings, and what does that cost look like if that's the motivation?
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jesse Goranson. I work in the Project and Strategy and Project Support Office. We got a new name. Yeah, thanks for the question. So is it about cost? It is about timing. It's about both. It's also, so we had a couple consultants look at a number of requirements for the development permits. And acoustical reports came up as one that weren't necessary anymore because of the building code changes that we've been put in place. So since the time that we've required these reports, we have thicker wall assemblies, better glazing on windows, and also required cooling in units. And so the remedies that we would put in place as a result of these reports are already encoded in the building bylaw. And so there's really nothing that staff can do now as a result of any of the recommendations in these reports.
Okay. What are other cities doing in the Lower Mainland? Are they still requiring these reports, like Burnaby or Richmond?
Yeah, I can't speak to other cities. We were just looking at our own context here. The reason we didn't look at other cities is because there was really nothing that we did with these reports, so it wasn't, from our perspective and a permitting perspective, necessary to look at what other cities were doing.
Okay. And what's the cost of doing these reports?
What we heard from industry is it's approximately $10,000 per report.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that's their fully loaded cost and what they're paying to subconsultants, or if that's just the cost of the report itself.
Okay. And you mentioned improved like building assemblies and that sort of thing. What about the windows? What is the requirement now? Is it triple pane?
I can't speak to the specific requirement right now.
Okay.
Perhaps somebody from building can. But when the acoustical report requirement was initially put in place, it was single pane windows. So
Okay.
it's enhanced substantially since then.
Mm-hmm. How long has it been in place for?
I don't know the specifics. It's been so long that nobody at staff knew exactly when it was put in place.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. That's it for me.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you to for the staff to the presentation. I did have similar questions around acoustic reports. And I'm curious, you noted you don't have the information right now about whether we require single pane, double pane, triple pane. Are we able to get that over the course of this public hearing on this item? And I guess what I'm looking to get some confirmation on is that effectively we do have high standards for building construction that deals with outside sounds, and because it is a matter that I'm hearing a lot about from the public on a regular basis living in a busy urban center. And so could you speak to that in a little bit more detail in terms of the requirements, whether it be strata buildings or single detached homes, duplexes, and what the expectations are to manage sound?
Yeah, I'm not going to read the entire Vancouver building code during the public hearing. What we did hear from our consultants is that the standards for window glazing are, particularly in Vancouver, because we have our own building bylaw, are some of the highest in the country. And those will mitigate the effects of sound beyond anything else that we would require as a result of these reports. So basically, the building code provides the highest standard of sound insulation when it comes to window glazing that we would require irrespective of the reports.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. Noise seems to be the theme. I know I'm going to ask in advance and may have to do a follow-up after that. We've got a number of speakers that look like they're all speaking to the acoustic issue. I'm wondering if you have any sense and any feedback that you got from the public around what the concerns are. And am I understanding this correctly, in addition to the question that was asked about cost, this is simply that in terms of the sequencing of the procedure, that the current reports, and reading from the report here, recommend noise mitigation measures at a stage when window and wall assemblies have not yet been determined. So it's kind of a moot point to do a report at that point until you know what your windows and walls look like and what kind of noise you would be buffering or mitigating until you're at that stage?
Precisely. So our consultants did talk to folks in industry in the acoustical report business, and the takeaway from those conversations was that the development permit was too early to actually look at any noise mitigating measures. The challenge with that is that the building permit is the place where the Vancouver building bylaw requirements kick in. And through that process and our regulatory powers, we're only enforcing the Vancouver building bylaw.
Okay. By way of follow-up, and I know Councillor Domino touched on it earlier, when we get the information back around what's in the VBBL and what would be required for noise at that stage, can we also get a sense if the VBBL has a higher standard than the BC Building Code? And if there is a distinction between what Vancouver requires and what the BC Building Code requires?
Yeah, I'm going to check on that with some of our colleagues online.
Okay, I'll look forward to that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, excuse me. This is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. We'll now hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Now, speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Now, our first public speaker is Banda Lagawa. Did I pronounce your name properly? Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, and staff. My name is Banda Lagawa, and I'm a professional engineer working with SLR Consulting Canada, based in Vancouver, and I'm opposed to the report recommendation. Thank you for the opportunity today to speak on this important matter. I fully understand the urgency of addressing Vancouver's housing crisis, and I'm very supportive of any improvement that can be made to streamline the permit review process. However, there are a few concerns that I have regarding the removal of the acoustical report submission during the development permit process, as we discussed before. Currently, there appears to be no alternative mechanism for the city to evaluate environmental acoustics performance for residential buildings outside of the DP permit review process. It is understandable that in some cases, the floor plan or the building elevation may not be in a state where full acoustical study can be completed. However, without any mechanism for the city to check for completion of environmental acoustic report or acoustic study, it is highly likely that no environmental acoustic study will be completed after the removal of the requirement. Under the current Vancouver building bylaw, there is no mechanism for environmental acoustics to be dealt with at the building permit stage. And building permit reviewers are mostly concerned with ensuring that building designs meet the minimum standards of the building bylaw, which only address noise transmission between units in multifamily dwellings, and not environmental noise transmitted through the exterior walls and windows. This omission could have severe consequences, particularly for developments near major noise sources, such as highways, arterial roads, transportation hubs, or industrial facilities. Residents of these buildings may face significant health risks due to the noise ingress into their living spaces. Furthermore, it will also drive more complaints towards the city councillor, city staff, which will likely result in tying up even more resources from the city and creating costly post-construction remediation challenges. While it is correct that more energy-efficient walls and windows tend to provide higher sound isolation, it is not always the case. For example, rigid building insulation materials, such as an EPS foam, while it is a pretty good building thermal insulation material, it doesn't provide any acoustic benefit. Exterior wall and window constructions can meet the minimum thermal, structural, and energy efficiency requirement in the building bylaw, but still have poor acoustic performance. Furthermore, the degree of acoustic mitigation required will also vary significantly based on the location of proposed development and the adjacencies to major noise sources nearby as well. A prime example of this is any residential tower adjacent to a SkyTrain line. The unit in the upper floor will have a direct line of sight to the SkyTrain tracks and will experience higher noise level compared to the unit at the lower floor. These complexities are often overlooked without any proper acoustic guidelines or any proper acoustic requirements. Instead of removing the acoustic requirement altogether, I recommend a more balanced two-step process. First, rather than removing the DN designation and acoustical report requirement entirely, make it an optional study for major developments. The city planning staff could then decide whether an acoustical study is required during pre-application consultation process. Based on the nature of the development itself, proximity to major sources of noise, such as major roadways, SkyTrain lines, airport, or industrial sources, such as harbor. For other areas with low potential noise impact or small developments, such as the RT and zones, a general acoustic best practices can be pursued instead. And when a study is required to free up the city staff resources, an external peer review process could be used where outside acoustic firms not involved in the particular project will conduct the review. with the cost of the peer review paid for by the developer. These two approaches are commonly pursued in the City of Toronto and Ontario, other Ontario municipalities as well. And I strongly encourage the city councillors to consult with the municipalities that have adopted similar measures before finalizing this policy change. By integrating the best practices from other regions, I believe that we can achieve our shared goal of expediting the housing development without compromising quality of life, health, and safety of the residents. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Speaker number 2, Dan Clayton. Dan, are you on the line? Speaker number 3, Mark Bliss.
Hello?
Okay, Mark, before we get started, you're a representative speaker. We just need to confirm the 3 other individuals are either here or online. Oh, there's 1, there's 2. Do we have a 3rd? Bridget Martin.
Bridget should have dialed in.
Yes, we're perfect. Thank you. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Mark Bliss. I'm president and one of the principal acoustical consultants at BKL Consultants. I represent BKL, an acoustical engineering firm established in Vancouver in 1966, along with 3 of my colleagues, Bridget Martin, Trevor Chang, and Serkan Olgan. Together, we represent 29 staff at BKL, with some of us residents of Vancouver. We are opposed to the proposed changes to the zoning and development bylaw to remove the acoustic report requirement. As professional engineers following our code of ethics, we hold paramount the health, welfare, and safety of the public. In this case, for the residents of future dwellings in noisy areas of the city. Imagine moving into a brand new, high-efficiency home, only to realize that the constant roar of traffic outside makes your restful sleep impossible. Now, imagine learning that the city once required noise assessments, but eliminated this requirement without a subject matter expert's review. That's the reality we risk creating by removing the acoustical report requirement. We're here today to express our strong opposition to these proposed changes. The January 21st referral report suggests removing the requirement because it's expensive, inefficient, and obsolete due to improved building technology. We respectfully disagree and oppose this change for 4 key reasons. 1, environmental noise is a significant health hazard. 2, improvements in energy efficiency do not address environmental noise risks. 3, the change will disproportionately impact vulnerable communities. And 4, the current regulation is not a barrier to efficient development permitting. So the first and perhaps most pressing issue is the need to recognize the impact of environmental noise on public health. By removing this requirement, you could save developers money and architects some time. But let's be clear, this does not benefit the city or its residents in any meaningful way. Instead, it puts thousands at risk of increased chronic noise exposure. The World Health Organization and researchers worldwide have confirmed a causal link between environmental noise and serious health risks, including cardiovascular diseases, sleep disorders, and mental health challenges such as anxiety and stress. In Europe alone, it's been calculated that more than 1 million healthy years of life are lost each year due to environmental noise exposure. Here in Vancouver, we face similar risks, yet this proposal would eliminate an important tool for mitigating them. In Vancouver, UBC researcher Hugh Davies and others have found similar impacts, even linking noise exposure to increased rates of diabetes and birth complications. Research shows that environmental noise is not just an inconvenience, it has measurable health consequences. Now, some might assume that modern energy efficient buildings naturally block out noise, but that's simply not the case. BC Housing's high performance exterior walls guideline demonstrates that energy efficient walls often fail to provide adequate sound insulation. Why? Because modern construction materials are lighter and less dense, often leading to worse acoustical performance compared to traditional materials. At the same time, factors like increasing traffic volumes, heavier vehicles, closer building setbacks, and smaller room sizes in dwellings are all contributing to rising noise exposure. This means noise risks today are greater, not less, than when the acoustical report requirement was first introduced in the late 70s, I believe. This issue isn't just about noise, it's about fair access to healthy living spaces, and lower income groups will bear the brunt of these changes. Let me share a specific example from a recent project we worked on, a nonprofit, Indigenous owned and operated affordable housing development located along East Hastings Street. This project aims to celebrate the rich history of the 3 host First Nations, but its zoning exempted it from requiring an acoustical study. Despite the sensitivities of the site, the city planner did not add this requirement for an acoustic report, meaning that the future residents of this building would not be afforded the same protections as residents in other parts of the city. With this bylaw change, this scenario will become the norm, and vulnerable communities will bear the brunt of these decisions as affordable housing is more often in high noise areas. Let's talk about efficiency. Contrary to the January referral report, the acoustic report requirement is already flexible. Retainer letters are routinely accepted in lieu of full reports when design details are not yet finalized. We also understand that staff do not currently review the reports. This allows projects to proceed without unnecessary delays and staff effort. Furthermore, it is inaccurate to claim that the acoustical reports cost $10,000. They typically would cost less than half that. In fact, removing the requirement will create more inefficiencies, in our opinion. Without a clear regulation, staff will have to spend additional time identifying which parcels require acoustical studies, increasing their workload and causing more delays, not fewer. So, what should we do instead? Rather than removing the requirement, we suggest taking a more integrated approach. Ideally, noise-sensitive land uses would not be placed in high noise areas. But since that is not the normal case, we recommend integrating environmental noise considerations into city policy, such as the Healthy City Strategy, and distributing acoustical study requirements across the different permitting stages. At the end of the day, this isn't just about policy, it's about protecting the well-being of future residents. Environmental noise is a growing public health risk that requires specific design interventions. With strategic planning, the city can ensure public health protection, sustainable development, and efficient permitting processes. We urge Council to reject this change and instead implement an integrated approach that reflects both responsibility and foresight. We would be happy to answer any questions or discuss our recommendations in further detail. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Great, Mark, thank you very much. Speaker number 4, Juan Ohm.
May I?
Yep, please go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Sim and councilors, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Won Ohm, and I'm a faculty member in the School of Construction and Environment at BCIT. I teach and research building acoustics and noise control. I'm not exactly a resident of Vancouver, but I'm here today as an acoustics expert with 30 plus years of experience. And what I'm going to do today is to just raise some awareness about some physics of sound, if you will, to help counselors deliberate on the proposal, the particular proposal on removing the acoustic report requirements. So I think that proposal sits on two basic assumptions or justifications, rationales, if you will. One is, acoustic report is not necessary at the very early stage of development, say permit at the permit stage. The second one is with the advent of advancement in building technology, I think acoustics is something that's automatically taken care of. Here, the advancement of building technology refers to, my understanding is thermal efficiency and things of that nature. So I just want to talk a little bit about these two assumptions, if you will. The first assumption that acoustic report or environmental noise assessment is not necessary at that early stage of development. My take on it is as follows. The soundscape is very site specific. What I mean by that is if you look at the noise map of any city on any given day, the arterial roads will be lit up like a Christmas tree, as opposed to the residential area relatively quiet. So it's a good idea for a developer and a builder to know what they're getting into right from the get-go in terms of environmental noise assessment, and it's going to enormously help builders and developers in the sense that they would know what kind of building materials to choose or what kind of wall assemblies or window assemblies to design and install to mitigate the noise pollution in place. So simply put, the earlier the better. So why not at the permit stage? The second point I'm trying to make is somewhere along the line of the previous speaker, and that's in a nutshell, there's no well-defined correlation between thermal efficiency and acoustic performance when it comes to window and wall assemblies. So the bottom line is, without that well-defined correlation, it's kind of dangerous to assume that the thermally efficient wall assemblies or a building envelope in general would mitigate sound from outdoors effectively. I think that assumption is very on a very tenuous ground at best from a purely scientific point of view, judging from my research and experience over the last 30 years. So, and the last thing I want to point out is in regard to the question, the point raised by one of the counselors here. It's about, as an example, it's about the triple glazing. Pardon my expression or analogy, but in triple glazing is like hospital gown, if you will. So it gives you an impression that you're wearing something, but you're pretty much exposed. So the point I'm trying to make here is, well, let me just quote two numbers, bottom line. There's this thing called the STC value. It stands for Sound Transmission Class. And the BC Building Code requires any given wall assembly should meet STC of 50. And when it comes to, okay, so that's the requirement by BC. When it comes to a triple glazing window, You just pick any model, any type from any manufacturer. The maximum STC you would possibly get out of any triple glazing is just about 35. So we're talking about at least one order of magnitude smaller sound insulation capacity by triple glazing.
Juan, and I'm sorry, we're well over time now.
Okay, so,
But thank you very much.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker we have is speaker number 5, Zoe Razavi. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Zoe Razavi, and I am an acoustical engineer with 25 years of experience. My work focuses on helping clients who are struggling with noise from roads, SkyTrain, and other urban noise sources, issues that often become crippling to their daily lives. I would like to mention some of the points that made in order to eliminate the acoustical report requirement. So I am opposed to this elimination. I am not a resident of City of Vancouver, but I care about the residents who are living in this city. Noise is not just an annoyance, it's a public crisis. Over the years, I have worked with countless residents who cannot sleep, cannot concentrate, and whose health is declining because of poor noise mitigation in their homes. Chronic noise exposure has severe health consequences. It disturbs sleep, increases stress, and is linked to cardiovascular disease. Our healthcare system cannot afford the additional burden due to eliminating this acoustical report requirement and adding more challenges to the existing ones. Once a building is built without noise protection, the damage is done. Retrofitting is expensive, difficult, and often impossible to fully resolve. The justification for this change is not reasonable. The argument that building materials are better now is misleading. Glass, concrete, and insulation do not automatically provide noise protection. They must followed by professional recommendations for their assemblies for providing required noise mitigations. Without an acoustical report, developers may unknowingly design homes that are unlivable due to excessive noise. It is claimed that acoustical reports cost $10,000. This is not true, and the cost for each building might be different. And if it is $10,000 and if it's not addressed, the cost after the construction is completed would be much higher than this, and it would be exponentially higher. I have seen entire condo building where residents are forced to install secondary windows at their own expense simply because no proper noise assessment was done before construction. The proposal leaves a dangerous gap. If this requirement is removed, there will be no formal review of noise impacts at any stage of development. This means that no one will check if SkyTrain road or industrial noise exceeds livability threshold, and that would mean ignoring CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation requirement for livable spaces. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporations require 35 dBA noise for bedrooms and 40 dBA for bedrooms during the nighttime and 40 dBA during daytime. And without an acoustical report at the development permit stage, there is no mechanism to ensure these noise limits are met in new residential development. In Vancouver, many residential developments are adjacent to high noise environments. SkyTrain noise can be up to 70 dBA. And arterial roads can be as noisy as 60 dBA. So you would like to achieve 35 dBA within the bedrooms. How could you achieve that without any just overseeing of any acoustical engineers? Without noise assessment, developers may unknowingly build homes where interior noise levels exceed CMHC requirement. The Vancouver building bylaw does not regulate environmental noise and only addresses noise transmission between suites within one building. It does not set requirements for outdoor noise mitigation, and if we consider this elimination, CMHC explicitly recognizes this need, and we totally ignore the requirement by CMHC. And the result would be more noise complaints, more unhappy residents, and more costly fixes that could have been avoided. And my coworkers suggested 2 steps of reviewing this, and I agree with that. Thank you. I know that I'm probably exceeding my.
Yeah, you have, but
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. The last speaker on the speakers list is Aaron Peterson. Aaron, are you here? Please come up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Peterson. I'm with Brown Strachan Associates. We're an acoustical consulting firm in Vancouver. I'm opposed to the application to remove the acoustical report requirement. I think most of what I was going to say has been covered here tonight by the other speakers. I'll just maybe try and touch on some questions that have been raised. Cost, I think the others have touched on that. We routinely conduct reports for less than 5,000, depending on project size, as low as 1,000 or 1,500. The VBBL does not touch on exterior to interior noise, which was a question raised earlier. And with respect to VBBL, BCBC, there's effectively no difference regarding acoustics between the two. The acoustical report requirement, as far as we're sort of aware, exists prior to 1991. And yeah, in terms of exterior facade performance, having improved, I would say we'd agree with the previous speakers that that's definitely not necessarily the case. So in general, I think we recommend the city retain the current process, roughly speaking. A concern, current process being a DP requirement. A concern is the design's not sufficiently advanced at that stage. Well, at early stages of the DP, it's not quite often the case. And therefore, some kind of letter, retainer letter, an initial risk assessment has been typically submitted in the past, to the city to indicate that we will look at the design once it's, has sufficient detail and produce the report at that point. So typically the full acoustical report with recommended facade upgrades is submitted upon receipt of the DP prior to conditions, at which point sufficient design details typically exist. I would have to say the vast majority of projects that we're involved in have adequate details to complete the report at that stage. And I think it's been touched on with respect to staff time involved. Our understanding is that staff are not reviewing the report, so I don't think there's a significant time consideration there. The responsibility then falls on the developer to meet criteria such as CMHC. In summary, we recommend the city retains the current approach, and we urge council to consider whether removing the acoustical report requirement and the connection to widely recognized criteria for interior noise, such as CMHC, whether this is the most effective and protective approach for all parties involved. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much, Aaron. Okay, well, that's the end of the speakers list there. Do we have anyone Anyone else online or in the chamber? Please come ahead. And if I can please get your first and last name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver, please.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Anushka Rajan. I am not a resident of Vancouver. I'm a senior acoustic consultant with RWDI, an acoustic consulting company that serves both BC and Canada and offices around the world. I'm here today on behalf of RWDI and my colleagues to share our sentiments that we are also opposed to the proposed changes to the zoning and development bylaw. At the heart of our position is our ethical obligation as engineers to hold paramount the health and safety of the people that we serve. Removing this requirement as proposed, in our opinion, directly undermines that. My colleague Mark Bliss has succinctly identified the health risks that we stand to face if acoustics is not considered. If the new developments we build cause our homes and our bedrooms to be louder, to be less restful, to be less relaxing, there are a host of health benefits that we stand to face. And the relatively small cost of $5,000 at our company, the 20 to 30 minutes that it takes staff to review the report, I think those costs pale in comparison to what we stand to risk here. But I'd also like to touch on a few additional points. My colleagues have done a great job. I'd like to talk about a few additional items. I know somebody asked about other cities, like the city of Burnaby and what they do. They do have a requirement for such a report, but they go above and beyond. They require not that we just look at the noise environment today, but future modeling for 10 and 20 years down the line, because acoustics is that important that we preserve not the environment, not just now, but consider what's going to happen in the future with noise development, with more dense development, to factor all of that in. So I thought I'd share that. We commonly hear that modern technology has advanced, and so we would not necessarily need specific attention to acoustics. While modern technology has advanced, that does not necessarily translate to acoustic improvement. My colleague spoke about triple pane, which is a common misconception we squash. We have triple pane glazing, so we'll be okay. Well, actually, it doesn't perform as acoustically well as common double pane glazing. But without the benefit of an acoustic study, you lose that value of the information that we provide. Our solid walls are getting smaller in buildings, our glass areas are getting larger. The walls that we do have are not concrete anymore. They are lighter weight, they're more porous, they're less acoustically performative. And so it is really important that we consider the acoustics and the noise impact of the residents in the homes that we're building, and not just squash this at this stage. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We do have another speaker online. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Hi.
Sorry, please hold for a sec. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question for the last speaker. I just realized we had changed our procedure at council meetings. We can't ask questions, but I just remember we can't at public hearing, and I'm sitting here getting more and more confused, to be honest, as I'm listening to some of the disparity between some of the staff responses and some of the acoustical consultants. So on the one hand, and here's my question to you, if you feel able to answer it, is on one hand, we have staff saying that we're having reports that are not actionable because it's too early in the process until it's determined, and yet you are advocating with some colleagues to have these reports that apparently are not being actioned. So what benefit do you think retaining these reports actually serves? So do you see them being actioned by your clients, or I'm a little confused?
Sure, yeah, that's a fair question. To answer your question directly, we do see them being actioned, and there is great value to having them done early on.
Are they generally actioned?
The reports that I have done, yes, because the reports that we do are intended to ensure that the interior noise targets at least meet the CMHC criteria of 35 to 40 dB that my colleague spoke about. And so what we do with the developers is we tell them, this is what performance your glazing needs to be, this is what performance your solid walls need to be, or this is how we can adapt to make sure that based on the exterior noise environment, your interior noise targets are met.
So can I ask
done.
a follow-up question? Because you referenced, for example, CMHC requirements, but you still have the ability to work direct with the development industry to provide that information, do you not, as part of their development without necessarily this intersection with the city at a point in the process where it seems the city is not actioning the information?
We do. Absolutely, we do. But the point of providing this early on in the development stage, I think, is it allows the developers also to factor this into the development as opposed to it being a post like a reactive measure. So if at the DP stage, for example, we'll tell them, we either provide a retainer letter or we say, these are the performance targets you should target. And as they then develop what their walls will look like, what glazing they want, they can then select materials that meet that right off the bat. And it's actually more cost effective to do that versus having to retroactively mitigate that.
Okay, but again, and I apologize, it's not my area specifically of expertise, but asking a clarifying question, you referenced meeting CMHC requirements. Is the development committee not required already to meet those guidelines?
They are, yes, yeah.
They are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you again. Sorry, back to the speaker online.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, and can we please get your first and last name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver, please?
Yes, of course. My name is Dan Clayton. I was due to speak earlier, but I had connection issues, so apologies for that. So I'm not a resident of Vancouver, I'm a resident of Calgary.
Great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening to the Mayor, Council and the public who are represented here tonight. Thank you for your time and consideration and the opportunity to speak on this important matter. My name is Dan Clayton. I'm speaking as the president of the Alberta Acoustics, Noise and Vibration Society and as an experienced practitioner with over 20 years of global experience in the noise and acoustics field. I have no financial interest in the Vancouver market. I'm a resident of Calgary, but I'm here as an advocate for good acoustical design in planning and development. The Society represents practitioners across Canada, including many in British Columbia, and provides expert input on noise policy and best practices as part of our procedures. I have seen approaches where noise is managed and planned for very well, and also where things are not so great. One of the biggest risks of removing structured acoustic assessment requirements is that it leaves municipalities relying on subjective or inadequate bylaws, which is the case here if this motion carries. Without objective noise standards, inappropriate designs very often move forward. They create long-term noise issues that are very costly and very difficult to resolve if they can be resolved at all, whereas good planning can minimize this burden. A clear example that I have dealt with recently was a noise nuisance situation in the city of Kelowna, albeit not in Vancouver. I'm bringing that up because they have no policy at the moment and they only have the building code to rely on. This was an infrastructure project which was designed without appropriate noise and vibration considerations, leading to significant health impacts on the nearby residents. This is now an unfavourable situation for both sides, with complaints, legal challenges and no easy resolution after the fact that this has been built and commissioned. Had there been a noise policy in place, this could have been prevented or at least mitigated much further than it is. The building code applies here but does not solve the issue for environmental noise effects, especially in an urban setting. There are real people impacted by the lack of noise policy where it applies. At the Society, we receive calls and emails from residents asking what policies applies to their noise concerns, only to experience frustration and defeat when they realise policy does not support them or does not exist. Without structured noise assessments, the burden of managing noise shifts from developers to the public who have limited recourse in this environment. If Vancouver removes this requirement, it risks creating more unresolved conflicts, putting both residents and businesses in difficult positions. A better approach would be to streamline the requirements for noise assessments rather than eliminate them, ensuring that developments consider these at an appropriate stage to protect both residents and industry from unnecessary disputes. Noise is a major driver of complaints. When noise is not addressed early, it results in persistent, costly problems. Noise policy should actually be strengthened, not removed in today's age, to ensure homes and businesses can successfully coexist. Complaints already exist in Vancouver despite current policies. Removing requirements will make them more common in my experience. The building code has been referenced tonight. It isn't enough. The code doesn't address real-world noise conditions in mixed-use high-density areas and external to internal sound. Relying solely on this would weaken already a limited regulatory framework in the province, and the city has not much control over the code either. Municipalities are generally struggling with noise. In my experience with other provinces in particular, I hear from municipalities seeking guidance on actually putting noise policy into place and improving it. Vancouver faces even greater challenges due to its density and mix of industrial and urban areas, which are a huge conflict. This issue is not unique to Vancouver. Across Canada, it is generally weak and needs improvement. In terms of my experience directly in an appropriate approach, I'm originally from the UK, and they have a practice guide that was developed there with consultation with the government and industry leading experts in the acoustics industry. And they have a more of a phased approach where they focus on early noise risk identification for sites rather than reactive mitigation after complaints arise. Instead of full removal, Vancouver could implement a two-stage noise assessment process similar to this, and it's kind of the foolproof guide to doing this stuff. They should look at doing a feasibility review early on to identify noise risks at the start of a project, or even when zoning particular land for developments that are planned with noise in mind from the beginning, and then at a later date request detailed assessment for high-risk sites, which would then require a full acoustic assessment where necessary as part of conditional approvals, which would only apply at that stage, allowing a proportionate case-by-case approach. ProPG, which is the guidance document, also prioritizes good design by considering site layout, building orientation, barriers, facade treatments, and ventilation solutions before resorting to the expensive last resort, which is the mitigation at the building level. This approach balances planning flexibility with noise control, that also developments are both practical and livable, and helps.
Great. Oh, and right on time. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. And thank you for calling in. Okay, well, this is, sorry, do we have any other callers or people in the chamber? No? This is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Now, if there are any additional speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. What's the rule on that? Yeah, no. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can send in comments though. Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we're now going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers to call in or come forward to the podium.
the acoustic consulting representatives that spoke tonight in terms of just finding some clarifications that the city still has acoustic standards. What are they? That the comments on the fact they're saying these reports are important. Our staff are saying the point in the process is not the right sequencing, if I'm understanding that correctly, in terms of the utility and value of the reports. And also in terms of the requirement that there are noise requirements, whether it's CMHC or otherwise, and whatever's contained in Vancouver's building bylaw that developers have to meet. So I'm just looking I know that's a big question. I'm just looking for staff, if you can come back and kind of reflect back on those questions and what we have heard from the representatives from the industry.
So, does that for everybody else?
I think he needs that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in terms...
Also, Chair, I'm not sure what my time is at 3 minutes, 30 seconds. I just started. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt you.
So,
go ahead.
I'll try to remember all the parts of that question. The first piece is the CMHC requirements. We're not proposing to change any of the CMHC requirements. So if a development was required by CMHC to receive acoustical reports, they would still need to do that. Developers, if they see a need and value in receiving an acoustical report, they can still commission those reports. All that we're saying, and I think to some extent it was consistent with what we heard from the speakers, is that the city takes no action from these reports. And so as a regulator, we don't feel like it's necessary to require them.
But maybe I guess the other part of that question then is it's not necessarily to require them, but there are still requirements in terms of standards that have to be met, and how and where do those standards come in at the city and the CMHC level? Right? And we're not changing standards per se, right? And what are those in terms of, it's a very important concern that's being raised around protecting people from noise pollution, right?
Yeah, so the CMHC standards are not part of city regulations. I can't necessarily speak to those. The Vancouver building bylaw, as the speakers have noted, does not regulate sound. It does regulate thermal efficiency and things of that nature. I checked with our CBO, and we do require triple pane glazing, which is much more sound protective than single pane, in our CBO's opinion. We also regulate performance when it comes to thermal performance on wall assemblies.
So can I ask a follow-up then? Do you think that we have a gap in terms of, because we're not doing anything with these reports now, but whether or not we action them, a requirement is really, do you think we have a policy gap, and that would, like, outside of the public hearing process and what we have in front of us tonight, should we be looking at an opportunity to, an increasingly densifying city, to augment the building bylaw to include noise requirements, or do we feel those are covered already through CMHC guidelines? I'm just looking to say, if somebody's like, we are concerned about noise in a growing city, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. I would generally defer to the CBO in terms of what belongs in the Vancouver building bylaw. Given the feedback we had from our consultants, it would probably be a more appropriate place to regulate sound as opposed to the development permit.
Okay, so we're only considering, just for super clarity then, we're only considering the development component tonight, and if council wants to action it, we can have that later conversation with our building team about what that might look like, separate from this procedure this evening.
Yes.
That's fair? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Thanks. I may have missed an answer there at the end, so apologies if this has been asked. I hope not. But were acoustical consultants engaged when this was put together? So we had many of them speak this evening. I'm just wondering what that engagement looked like, if there was some.
Yeah, so our consultants led that engagement. They spoke to a number of acoustical consultants.
Okay. City staff led the engagement?
We had external consultants lead the engagement.
Okay.
With the acoustical consultants in industry.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what that looked like how many acoustical consultants were engaged? Because I'm hearing a lot of opposition tonight from acoustical consultants, so I'm just wondering what that engagement looked like.
Yeah, so there was opposition to removing the requirement.
Okay.
What they did identify was that the development permit was not necessarily the appropriate place to be looking at building acoustics.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that.
Great. Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue. Have we received any additional public comments since the close of public comments? Nope. Okay. Okay. So that does that. Council, we're now going to make a decision on this application. Do we have a mover? Great. Thank you, Councillor Joe. Seconded. Councillor Kirby Young. And please go to. And is there any discussion? Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just say off the top that I am going to send in an amendment here to remove the bullet point around the acoustical report requirement being removed. And sorry, you'll have to bear with me here on that because I need to copy the whole clause and cross that out. But just to make some comments, I'm not convinced when we're weighing the benefits and the drawbacks of making this change that it makes sense to remove this requirement given the relatively small cost and what could be a really large impact on people's lives. I will just speak from a bit of experience, having lived in a newer condo building on a busy arterial street. It was unbearable. I had to sleep with a white noise machine every night. And this is a building that was built in the last 20 years. I do recognize that building standards have improved a lot in recent times, and we're using thicker windows, but I just don't feel that I can make a decision to make a major change like this that I feel will have a large impact on people's lives, and that is not being done in other jurisdictions, including our neighboring cities. So I am in support of the other aspects of this report, but this particular one makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't think I can support it. And I don't really believe that eliminating this particular report will make a really big difference in terms of speed. So that's my thoughts on it. Thanks.
So, Councillor Meisner, are you sending something in?
Yeah, I'm just going to need, if no one else is going to speak, I'm just going to need a few minutes. So I'd appreciate if you could call like a 3-minute recess while I.
Can we get a 3-minute recess unless someone wants to? Oh, great. I'm going to pause the timer. 1, 2, 3. I'll add more time. Okay. Oh, can we please pull the amendment up? Great. Okay, and do we have a seconder, or I can second? Councillor Clausen, thank you very much. Councillor Montague, you're on the queue there.
Okay, thanks very much for your patience. Normally, we could just sever this, but because it's a bullet point, I had to send in an amendment, so it is a little bit more involved. But I just want to make a few more points. I am concerned, obviously, about the impact of removing this. I am concerned that there will be no formal review of noise impacts if this requirement is removed. That's really going against what we're doing in neighboring cities and what Vancouver has been doing for several decades. And mentioned by many of the speakers that we already have buildings in Vancouver that are suffering with noise issues that were built with this requirement in place. So I am concerned about that becoming worse if we were to remove this requirement, which again is a relatively small cost when you're thinking about, a $200 million building that hundreds of people are going to be living in for decades to come. I don't feel that saving $5,000 to $10,000 is really worth it. And on the roads, one of the speakers brought up that all roads are not created equal, and I would certainly agree. Obviously, minor roads are much different than arterial roads, and roads with elevations and hills are going to be noisier than roads that are flat, and roads that have bus routes on them are going to be a lot noisier than roads that don't have buses on them. So that's why I'm putting this amendment forward, and I just want us to think carefully about this, and this is really something that has an impact on people's quality of life and also their health. So that's why I'm proposing this amendment. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I appreciate the amendment put forward, and I don't disagree with anything that's been said with regards to how important noise mitigation and reduction is, and how it does impact quality of the life and health. But I am struggling with the fact that what the amendment is doing is keeping a policy that staff is basically saying that because of the requirements and where the policy is being implemented, and because of VBBL and BCBL, I'm going to paraphrase and be kind of blunt, that basically staff are taking this report and putting it in the trash, basically. They're not looking at it, they're not actioning it. So it just seems ineffective, or just a policy that's in place because it's been there for years and years, and we just, we're following policy because the policy is there. Maybe this is a case of where noise mitigation and dealing with noise reduction can be dealt with somewhere else, but I don't think that this policy is effective. So I'm not going to support the amendment. But like I said, I totally appreciate that how important this issue is. I just don't think this is an effective way of trying to mitigate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And thanks to all the speakers that came out on this one. Who knew that dry permitting updates could be so interesting? I do appreciate that noise is an emotional issue, and in an increasingly densifying city, it's important to deal with it. However, I'm not supportive of the amendment, and the reason why is that what I'm hearing is that, and I think I asked the question quite explicitly, is that it needs to be dealt with in terms of our building regulations and not at the rezoning stage. And I'm more than happy to follow up and take that dialogue offline and with other councillors that are interested to chat with our building official staff and look at what emerging best practices are and what should we be doing as a densifying city, because sort of, health and wellness with noise is very real. Some may recall I brought forward a motion, which has been tough to advance, but around landscape equipment to move to electric, because I got to tell you, when you hear that level of noise consistently at that whining thing, and we all were home a lot during COVID, it is very detrimental to your mental and emotional state to hear that consistently. So I'm very sympathetic to the outcome. I'm just responding to what I've heard around how and where is the best place to deal with it in the process. And I think it's a good conversation for us to have, and it's an important one as the city changes. But again, report is not being actioned, and what I heard is that it is too early in the sequencing to sort of provide the full assessment, the full benefit. I am really I learned a lot, and I'm happy to hear a lot of the expertise of the acoustical experts, and I'm sure that they can provide a lot of input to dealing with it at the appropriate time, but it doesn't seem like their expertise is being used just in terms of where our process is. So I think this is something that we should continue to look at. We should take offline outside of this public hearing process, which is designed to speed up permitting. And I just want to clarify one thing for the record, that I think it was referenced by Councillor Meisner, it's a small cost. I don't think it's financially about the cost. It's about the effectiveness of regulation and policy, and having good policy that is at the right place in the process or is in the right regulations. And what I'm hearing is a disconnect on that piece. And so, yeah, you can't measure sort of people's impact and well-being, but financially, if it's not being used, that it's also time to get things built. And I don't see the point in requiring something that is not coming in at the right point in the process or is being embedded into the right regulation. And what I'm hearing clearly is it needs to be in the building bylaws and process and not in the stage there. So I'm not going to support the amendment for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Meisner, for bringing this amendment. Also, thanks for all the speakers to speak from your expertise regarding this very important issue. I understand the emotion. But I think, seeing this acoustic report is useless. It's not right. It's not useless. It's a very useful report. But, I think this policy is not necessary because we heard loud and clear from our staff. There's no action being taken from this policy. So if there's no action, why we put that policy forward? So it doesn't make sense from that perspective. And also, I think, as we also heard from the staff, it's not removing we just remove the mandate. So if there's a requirement from CMHC or from other, from the developers, we can still submit that report. We just remove the mandate, the requirement. So from that perspective, I'm not going to support this amendment. Oh, also, I think strategically, we need to send a very strong signal to staff and also to our community that we need to be bold, taking bold action to solve this housing crisis. So if we are afraid of change, we're never going to achieve 3331. So from my perspective, I think achieving 3331 faster is what is most important to me. So with that, I'm not going to support this amendment. But really, I appreciate all the speakers and I appreciate all the intentions behind this amendment. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, thank you very much. Can I please see the chair to Councillor Claassen? Great. So I do want to say I totally acknowledge and really appreciate Councillor Meisner putting forward this amendment. It shows that he cares and he's looking at the lens through people that want to live in our city, and I think we're all on the same page here. Things, there's no perfect answer, and I think whenever we look at things, it's we can do stuff, but at what cost? And so for me, we ran on a stated goal that we want to speed up the permitting process because we need to create an environment where we can build a lot more homes faster, and so. I do believe that, and it's not just this policy, there are a lot of things that we've tasked our team to look at, and they've come back with a view of reducing all these little things that up to a big thing when it comes to speeding up the permitting process. So, with that, I won't be supporting it. And I do want to give people here a little bit of hope, not hope, Yeah, I do want to paint a picture of where I think this is going. I was just at a conference, Abundance 360, where it's all about the future and convergence. And I actually just flew up this morning. I'm missing most of it, but in the one day I was there, you know, the convergence of AI with technology and robotics, and saw, you know, how they're basically sending signals for people that are paraplegics, they can walk again. And having, you know, 1,000 agents working in a matrix, and they're actually thinking and they're creating solutions. I share this with you because I know the technology will exist in a very short time, that where there could be noise issues, we will come up with the solutions to just basically put in the units that we've constructed, and we will address the sound issue as well. And so with that, I won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Mayor. You can chair back. First of all, thanks, Councillor Meisner, for bringing forward and really drawing attention to this item here, and also to thank all the speakers who came today. It was really clear to me from listening and sort of seeing all of you that this is something that is extremely important, and I actually agree that sound and noise is a real health threat, and it's something that we really, if for our sort of urban fabric to succeed, we're going to need to make sure we address it better. And I think that this is really for me, and I also I don't think that the work of these reports is for naught. I don't think that this is. I think that these are incredibly important. This is important work, but it's also work that could be refined in some way. And so I know that members of our council often sit down with experts in quite a few different fields, and they come to us with ideas and help us shape policy. And I think what I would like to do is for those who have the ability to come and meet with council, is to spend time with us sitting down and exploring ideas that will be much more effective in terms of addressing noise, either through building materials, former development, or even urban planning. We really do need to get on top of this for us to be have a much more successful urban living, because noise is a real health threat, and it's a threat to both physical and mental health as well. So I will not be supporting the amendment as is, but I, like others who have spoken before me, would like for us to really take this issue of noise and acoustics really seriously, and try and see if Vancouver can be more of a leader in this regard, and make sure that we work with industry like those who are here present tonight, to really come up with some great ideas and great policies that we can bring forward that will allow us to continue to be extremely efficient in how we move forward on forms of development, but also for the people who are living here, making that quality of life so much better. So with that, I'll not be supporting this, but do invite a further conversation on this in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, I have a point of information to staff, and it was to, just in light of the amendment, could you clarify in the report, it specifies that the rationale for bringing this forward was the additional expense, and you talked about the cost and the time with respect to the development process. How much time do we save in issuing a development permit by removing this?
Quantifying time, particularly time savings in the development permit by removing any one regulation, is extremely difficult. It's a very complex system. And so, for example, the development permit checklist that has 32 different studies and plans that it requires. Our approach is to, like Mayor Sim said, incremental changes on top of each other start to equal big changes. And we've seen this in other areas of permitting. Renovations are much faster. We're building small homes, single-family homes, and laneways much faster as a result of paring down regulations slowly over time. Given that, it's difficult to say exactly what the time savings will be, but we're following our approach of incrementally making changes over time.
Okay, thanks for that. I guess just a follow-up question to that is, can you clarify, in terms of a builder, how much time would be taken to have a report produced and how much time our staff would spend with analysis of that report?
Yeah,
Is that something you could practically, instead of talking about savings, talk
Yeah, I
about it in
can't
the
comment
current
on how much
context?
time a builder would take. When we talked to industry, they noted that it is another thing that they have to think about and look at. In terms of staff savings, one of the things that we have to do is go through the checklist and make sure that applications have all of the items that we require as part of a complete application. And so in cases where an acoustical report is missing, that can lead to a back and forth with the applicant and a delay in us accepting their submission, and therefore a delay in the city processing their submission. The other piece too is as we look forward to digitizing our processes, it's going to be easier to digitize a more simple process with fewer requirements, and so that's part of the thinking on paring down the upfront regulation, studies and plans and analysis that's required.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no one else in the, no one else in the amendment queue, we will, sector. So are we voting on this as amended? Right. Voting on this amendment. Now, are we voting on the strikeout? Yeah, okay. So we're all as clear as mud. We're going to be voting on Councillor Meisner's strikeout. So if we can go to the voting panel, please. Okay, vacant 1, vacant 2. Okay, and the amendment fails with myself, Councillor Kirby Young, Councillor Montague, Councillor Klassen, and Councillor Joe in opposition, and Councillor Dominato abstaining. Okay, so then we will go and I guess if we can go back to the voting panel, and we're going to vote on up there. Yeah, we're going to vote on the recommendations unamended. Is that a word? Unamended? As is. Thank you. All right. If we can please go back to the voting panel. And that passes with Councillor Meisner abstaining. Oh, sorry. Would you like a vote assist? Do you have technical issues?
Okay, I'll take a vote assist in favor. Thank you. Oh, wait, now it's up.
Okay. So that passes with Councillor Meisner abstaining. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is item number 2, which is rezoning of 4471 through 4485 Fraser Street and 691 East 29th Avenue. Before we begin this agenda item, does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing no one in the queue, the clerk's now going to read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Niru Sharma to rezone 4471 to 4485 Fraser Street and 691 East 29th Avenue from RT2 Residential District to RR3A Residential Rental District to permit the development of a 4-story mixed-use rental building with a partial story for a rooftop amenity space. A floor space ratio of 2.40 is proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 2 pieces of correspondence in support and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Now, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Now, there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. And we do have our team from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. This item has no speakers registered, so council could opt to waive the staff or team member presentation unless a member would find it helpful. Councillor Montague.
Yeah, since there's no speakers, happy to waive the presentation and have it emailed to council.
Great, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Meisner. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. We will waive the presentation. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance?
Good evening, Mayor Sim and members of council. My name is Wing Leung. I'm the architect making the application on behalf of our client, Mr. Gopal, and that is before you this evening. We've read the staff report to council. We're comfortable with the requirements in the report, and we're confident that we can meet the requirements. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? Councillor Klassen.
Yes, I was just going to ask questions of the applicant. We have the architect here at this time. I realize that with the SRP, we make these requirements at this stage fairly straightforward, but I thought maybe you, in lieu of us getting a staff presentation that probably would be very high level, if you had any particular things about this project that you would like to share at this stage. I take interest because I've been watching this area evolve, and I think this is going to be a great addition to the community.
Well, I think this will be a good addition to the community because it's in an area where you can have, fairly affordable rental housing, and this particular application will bring forth, street activation in terms of retail activities along Fraser Street, but at the same time, we're bringing 30 units of housing, of which over 35% will be family-oriented 2- and 3-bedroom units. So it will add to the community.
And I know that this question inevitably comes up, but there is a rooftop amenity, proposed for this building here. What measures would be potentially taken just for any noise mitigation potentially if
The amenity areas are actually located on the roof of the commercial podium where the parking is, and is actually away from Fraser Street. So the building itself, with a 3-story above the 1-level commercial, the building itself will serve as the buffer to the general vehicular noise that one experiences on a commercial street like Fraser Street. So the 3-story residential portion will be the acoustical barrier, if you will.
I see another one of your colleagues came over. It looked like you wanted to add something.
I was just going to mention, we don't have rooftop.
No, there's a podium, it's on the podium.
Got it. So
It's on the podium, it's not on the roof. So that's why I refer to the podium on the commercial level.
okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thanks very much. Look forward to the next steps on this project.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. We're now going to hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, do we have any registered speakers online or in person right now? No. Okay. No, no one? Great. Okay, so this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. If there are any additional speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. So we're now going to take a 5-minute break or recess for any additional speakers to call or come forward to the podium. line or in the chamber? No. Okay, seeing no further speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Seeing that there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments? Nope, great, thank you. Do our team members have any closing comments?
No closing. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Does council have any final questions for our team? Oops, Councillor Kirby-Young.
No, happy to move the recommendations, Mayor.
Awesome, great, and seconded by Councillor Montague. Before we get there, Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments? Did not, great. Okay, so that has been moved and seconded. Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Klassen.
Yeah, I'll just be really brief, just to say that I'm looking forward to seeing this project get underway. It's a really dynamic and great part of Fraser Street at the corner of 29th, right across from the No Frills and the shopping area there, and also another development across the street that will have additional retail. So it'll be great to welcome this new project to the neighborhood. There were some comments that were mailed in by people who were in support of it, but they also flagged the fact that the SRP policy in this case really perhaps made this one perhaps slightly less dense than it might have been otherwise at 4 stories as opposed to either 5 or 6, which triggers another set of requirements. So it's just worth just flagging that because this project would be probably fine at any one of those heights, but anyway, I'm very pleased to see it coming on stream and look forward to seeing shovels in the ground there. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm now going to call the vote. If we can please go to the voting panel. And that passes unanimously. Great, congratulations. Okay, moving on to item number 3, CD-1 rezoning. Thanks, everyone. CD-1 rezoning 4910 through 4950 Willow Street. Before we begin the agenda item, is there anyone who wishes to declare a conflict of interest? Nope. Okay. Now the clerk's going to now read the application and the summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Michael Green Architecture to rezone 4910 to 4950 Willow Street from R1-1 Residential District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 14-story institutional building with 75 units for temporary accommodation for medical care. A floor space ratio of 3.78 and a height of 55.8 meters are proposed. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 2 pieces of correspondence in support, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. 2 pieces of correspondence and that represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you very much. Now, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Now, there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. Now, we do have team members from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Now, this item has no registered speakers, so council could opt to waive this team member presentation. Whoops, there is one speaker. Now, team members can still waive, right? Okay, so council could opt to waive the presentation unless any member would find it helpful. Oh, Councillor Montague.
Actually, I was just talking with some of the councillors. I think we would like to, because of what is being proposed here, we'd like to actually hear the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's hear the presentation.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Allison Smith, and I'm the planner for this rezoning application proposing a new Ronald McDonald House at 4910 to 4950 Willow Street, being considered under the Canby Corridor Plan. The site is comprised of 3 properties located at the southeast corner of West 33rd Avenue and Willow Street. The area is characterized by a mix of uses and building types, as well as large sites neighboring the subject property which are under construction or anticipating redevelopment. There's an existing Ronald McDonald House, which will continue to operate and is located about 2 blocks north of the subject site, adjacent to the BC Women's and Children's Hospital. The newly rebuilt Eric Hamber Secondary School is located across Willow Street to the west. The Heatherland site across the lane to the east has been approved for rezoning to allow for 3 to 28-story buildings with a diversity of housing tenures, a childcare facility, a site for a French language school, a park and public open space, office, retail, and a cultural center. The Heatherlands project is a joint venture partnership between the local nations and the Canada Lands Company. To the north across 33rd Avenue, the Archdiocese of Vancouver site has been approved for rezoning to allow for a 13-story community care facility and a 14-story residential rental building. The site is located within close distance to a number of parks and community spaces, including Queen Elizabeth Park, Oak Meadows Park, and the Van Dusen Botanical Gardens. Bike routes pass by the site on Willow Street and West 33rd Avenue. The site is located within the Queen Elizabeth neighborhood of the Cambie Corridor Plan. Under Policy 4.28 of the plan, the site can be developed as mid-rise market housing, including a 4-story strata residential project or a 6-story rental housing building. A density of up to 2.5 FSR can be considered for market projects. The institutional site section of the plan recognizes the importance of nonprofit operated institutional uses as they form an integral part of the city's social fabric. The plan emphasizes the city's intent to retain and increase these uses in the Cambie Corridor. Increases in height and density can be considered to facilitate the delivery of institutional uses that provide community serving uses such as the Ronald McDonald House. The rezoning application was submitted on July 12, 2024. It proposes a new Ronald McDonald House, which is a facility for children and individuals and their families and caregivers from across BC and the Yukon seeking medical care at the BC Women's and Children's Hospital. The facility would offer temporary accommodation at affordable rates, as well as associated support services, including food and meal programs, wellness and mental health programs, and guest amenity spaces. The new house would provide temporary accommodation for the out-of-town individuals they serve within 75 units with self-contained washrooms and kitchenettes, as well as ancillary office space for Ronald McDonald House staff and volunteers to support the operations of the facility. The proposal is for a 14-story mass timber building with a 1 to 4-story podium and a density of 3.78 FSR. Ample shared indoor and outdoor amenity spaces are proposed throughout the facility. Staff note that when submitted, the application indicated the proposed use to be social housing. However, staff review has determined that the proposal does not exactly fit the city's definition of social housing or of a dwelling use generally, in particular due to varied lengths of stay by guests and the house's policy to not income test their guests. The facility and stays are also not regulated by the Residential Tenancy Act. Staff have created a new use, temporary accommodation for medical care, for this specific project, which better suits the proposed facility and its operations. This new use is defined in the CD1 bylaw. Staff recommendations in the referral report also include amending the DCL bylaws to introduce the new use as one subject to reduced DCL rates. A virtual question and answer period was held last September. A total of 20 submissions were received. Support was expressed for this project, in particular for the unique building design, the provision of affordable accommodation for families in need, and the strategic location within walking distance of the hospital. Comments of concern related to the proposed height and density, concern for new social housing in the neighborhood, and comments that the project should be subject to an expedited review. We reviewed the concerns and have the following responses. In terms of height and density, additional height and density can be considered to support project viability for institutional uses such as this one. The tower is located at the West 33rd Avenue corner of the site, providing transition to low-rise neighbors to the south. The height is also in keeping with the emerging context of the area. In terms of comments around social housing, as I noted, this project is not social housing as per our definition, and staff emphasize the importance of a facility such as this one, which provides affordable accommodation options and support services for families from across the province and the Yukon who are receiving medical care at local facilities. There really is a strong need for a facility of this kind in Vancouver. In terms of the rezoning process, staff emphasized that the project was in fact processed through the SHORT program, which does expedite social housing projects through the rezoning DP and BP processes. And although it was determined that this project does not meet our definition of social housing, it will continue through the SHORT program in the next development processes. In conclusion, the proposal can be considered under the Canby Corridor Plan, and the rezoning application provides important affordable accommodation and support for families who are seeking medical care in Vancouver. Staff support the application subject to the conditions contained in Appendix B of the referral report. We're available to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Now, would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance?
Yes, this is Natalie Telviak here from Michael Green Architecture. I'm here along with Richard Pass, the CEO of Ronald McDonald House, and we are grateful to be able to share a little bit more about the need for the house, and I will just briefly walk through a little bit more about the design of the proposed project. And to do that, I will first share my screen for a brief presentation. And Richard, I'll pass it over to you to first go through the current house and the need for the proposed development.
Thank you so much, Natalie, and good evening, everyone. Ronald McDonald House in British Columbia has been in operation since 1983. And in 2014, we moved from serving 13 families at a time to 73 families in the house that you see on the screen at the moment. At the time, honestly, we thought we were done at that point. We had built and moved forward with how many people we were going to be able to serve. In the last 10, 11 years that we've been operating in this house with 73 families, what we found is that as nice as the house is, they're all studio style rooms. And in those studio style rooms, we have families that stay with an average of 30 nights and sometimes up to 3 years. And so in that timeline, even if it's a single parent and a child, then, how does that parent have a phone call, watch TV, have a cry, have a relationship? It's extremely tough. And so, and we're full every day, and we turn away 500 or more families a year. And so this new house will allow us to have a long stay house for families that are there in a mix with studio 1 and 2 bedroom fully contained suites. So for example, after a transplant, in that first 100 days when kids are immune deficient, they're critically ill, and so this house would give them the opportunity for the families to be able to have a light meal in their room and yet continue to come down when it's time to have the arms wrapped around them and the support that a Ronald McDonald House provides. And it's critically, in my mind and in the families that we've spoken to in the preparation, critically important to be able to expand and serve from 73 families to 150 families a night, and to be a partner with the Provincial Health Service Authority.
Thank you, Richard. I'll walk through a few slides to describe the design and approach to the site context. As was mentioned, the proposed house is along 33rd and Willow and is within a 5-minute walking distance to the hospital and the current house, creating a campus of support and easy access to services for families staying at the house. For context, the image on the left is current condition, and the image on the right, as Allison described, highlights future neighborhood possibilities when we consider the Canby Corridor Plan and also looking forward to the Heatherlands development to the east, building on a range of forms, heights, and densities. The design drivers, the primary one is to provide a house that creates a home away from home for families coming from all over the province and the Yukon. The intention is to build on lessons from the current house with architecture that is focused on healing for children and for families, allowing the design to help foster community connection between families, something we found to be a huge contributor to support and wellness within the house. Creating design concepts that connect to nature and places from around the province. allowing for places within the building that are designed for all age groups, and embracing the power of wonder and play. Thinking about healing for people within the building and also the environment around us, the building has set high sustainability goals, including a low carbon mass timber structure and pursuing CAGBC zero carbon building standards. The House is also grateful for ongoing collaboration and engagement with our neighbors, including the Heatherlands to the east. Some of the learnings that have come from discussions with the cultural liaisons include connection to site in a meaningful way, learning about the rich history of the site as a space of travel and connection, and telling these stories within the design, fostering the connection of building, art, and stories to connect to the land and place. We talked about the idea of creating a home and designing for the future by thinking 7 generations ahead, and always considering designing from a child's perspective, while building on the opportunity to design spaces and program to support healing and connection to nature. As Allison mentioned, this house is really providing a unique program that supports the function of the Ronald McDonald House BC, ranging from studios to 2 beds and being supported by a range of amenity spaces, including shared kitchens, dinings, play spaces, and healing spaces. This unique blend provides opportunities for families to have personal space while offering a large range of amenities to encourage community building between families, and being able to benefit from the ripple effects of support from staff and other families. The building form speaks to the Ronald McDonald House identity and massing of the current Heather House, while also scaling to provide the much needed capacity and carving the spaces to create both inward looking courtyards and outward looking views to the vistas beyond, designing from the inside out and the outside in. This program also includes the amenity spaces in blue and housing spaces in peach. As you can see, the housing provided in the tower form while encouraging use of amenity spaces below, with each of the exterior decks programmed to support different functions from dining, play, to healing, overlooking the North Park to the east, so to the right of this page, and building on this adjacency. On the corner of 33rd and Willow, the building mediates a 6 meter grade change from Willow to the lane, and studies have been done to study the pedestrian and vehicle flow, which have informed the placement of the main entry that you can see along Willow, as well as parking along the Willow side and services provided along the lane. And this section shows that the grade change from Willow Street to the lane, and really allowing the building design to support and build on the site features. A view from the Willow Street side where one would approach from the hospital, creating a welcoming entrance that speaks to a feeling of home and warmth. And the team is looking forward to further collaboration on exterior materials and textures, embracing connection to nature in pattern and material while providing a high performance, low energy solution. Moving up to the second level, getting a peek into the potential of the interiors with the warm timber structure connecting to the exterior courtyard. And lastly, a view from the east to the secondary approach from the lane, where the team is looking forward to continuing to build on the strength of the connection to the North Park and enhancing the connection to the Heatherlands. And with that, I will thank you all for your time and look forward to any questions or comments you might have.
Great, thank you very much. Now, are there any questions from council to team members or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? And Councillor Kirby-Young, I see you online. You're up.
Yeah, thanks. I have one question, my first one to staff, and just noting the waiver of the change of the DCL rate with respects to the temporary accommodation piece and the qualification, and so the nominal charge of $20, I believe it is, and outlined in the report. There we go. There are gremlins. How much would that have charged the project without that bylaw, DCL bylaw change? What would the additional cost burden have been on this project?
I don't have that information right now, but I can calculate it for closing comments.
Okay, I would appreciate that. And then maybe I can direct a question to the applicant. And that, obviously, this project's full of heart. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of comments later on. I guess my question is, where are you in the trajectory of delivering this project? If this is supported by council tonight and passes, you have the rezoning entitlements, but where are you in the project? 'Cause I know it's not easy to deliver capital projects of this nature.
Following the rezoning, we are working through schematic design and design development right now.
Sorry, it's
looking
not,
at
my question is not so much a process one, it's more of a
sorry.
it's more of a funding
Absolutely.
question.
Richard, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, thank you so much. The project we expect to cost $98 million. We have just received a federal grant, GCIB grant, that takes us up just in excess of $30 million. We're awaiting the province of BC for their grant. They gave us half the project in the house that we're currently in. And we have about $12 million philanthropic asks out currently that will take us close to the 80% that we need to break ground.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, appreciate it. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. We're now going to hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. So our first speaker is Tobias, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Slezak. Tobias, are you online there?
Hello, I am online. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great. Please go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. Hi, my name's Tobias. I work for the MS&T development team for the Heatherlands, and I wanted to briefly speak to express my support for this project generally and really applaud the rezoning team for their meaningful work consulting with our First Nation partners and us in particular to make sure that there's a cohesiveness to their design and development with the Heatherlands and particularly the North Park that they're adjacent to. You know, they've really done a lot of really good work with the cultural liaisons that we've introduced them to, and also in their Public and Art initiative. Yeah, I would welcome council approving this. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, but it's important that we recognize great work from, you know, all the way from architecture to, you know, a really important use and the solutions you've found to find a new use for this and hopefully a DCL waiver for the project, I think is a great effort and well spent. So congratulations to everyone involved, and yeah, hopefully this one passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much, Tobias. Now, this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. If there are any additional speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. So now, do we have any speakers online or in the... Great. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers to call in or come forward to the podium. Seriously. two. And Councillor Dominato, can you please turn on your camera again? You have quorum? Great. Oh. Okay. So do we have any additional speakers online or in the chamber? No. Okay, seeing no further speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Seeing that there are few or no comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now going to close the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
I guess the only thing I'd say is on behalf of all the families that stay at the house every day, I just want to send my appreciation for your support and continuing support for the families in need.
Thank you very much. Do our team members have any closing comments?
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, I have some closing comments with regards to Councillor Kirby-Young's question about DCL rates. And I'll note that if the project had come in under social housing and had we determined it to be social housing, it would be fully exempt, so $0. For an institutional use, most other institutional uses would have a DCL of about $2.5 million for an FSR of this scale. Other than that, no closing comments.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, does council have any final questions for our team members? Councillor Kirby-Young.
No, I don't have questions, but I'm happy to move the recommendation and speak to it, Mayor.
Okay, in one moment. So Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of the public comments? Oh, great. So thank you. Councillor Kirby-Young moved, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, I'm now going to call. Oh, whoa. Pardon?
Something's going on with my stuff.
There's some gremlins here. Main queue. Okay. Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I think it's our tech gremlins or something with our system. I just want to express a heartfelt thank you for all of the folks involved in Ronald McDonald House every day, but in delivering this project, it's the kind of facility that you're really glad it's there, but you hope that families don't have to use. And I'm sure it's a very big day in terms of, for the team in terms of the process on this. I appreciate that it's close to the existing facility and to Children's Hospital. I will note that the applicant has also is setting the bar with respect to use of mass timber at 14 stories and a zero carbon building. But at the heart of it, it's really a labor of love. I'm glad to hear that the normal institutional uses that this might have been subject to saves $2.5 million. As we heard, it's not easy to deliver capital projects and social purpose benefiting facilities of this nature. This one at $98 million, and they've got some room to go, but they're making fantastic progress. And I'm glad that the city can sort of relieve the financial burden a bit with respects to the DCLs, hence my question. But I just really honestly, more than anything, want to extend gratitude. You don't want any family, as I said, to be in that situation, but to give them the dignity of space where they can come together while you have a sick child that's going through treatment or in what can sometimes be a long recovery process. I can't really think of anything that's more important than that. And it's hard to hear that some families have to stay for up to 3 years. That's very difficult to get your head around, to have someone's life upended. And I'm just incredibly glad that the team are there. And my hat is off to everybody involved with the project. I'm very grateful for it. And hopefully you'll close that gap and be able to start breaking ground on this as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Klassen.
Thanks, Mayor. And a sort of a similar line of thinking from me as well. I am really believe that a project like this is Vancouver at its very best. My hat's off to the folks at Ronald McDonald House who have created an incredibly important institution within our city, and to go to the next stage of a project that will have up to 150 units that will be more comfortable for families. And as Councillor Kirby-Young stated, it's not something that anybody would want to wish on any other family, except that during the time when they are trying to support a child in need, you want to have an environment like this. And having watched the evolution of Michael Green architecture in their leadership in wood and mass timber construction, I think this is a perfect pairing. I think they're a fantastic local firm and have done incredible things. And I'm excited about this project, and particularly with the close relationship and connection to the Heatherlands MST project. I just think, again, this checks all the boxes for me, and I'm really hopeful and supportive of the work that Ronald McDonald House is doing to close the financial gap to make this project happen. And I know this area very well. My daughter was an Eric Hamber student, so we've got the brand new school just down the street. And looking beautiful and coming out of the ground there. And we have the Catholic Diocese across the street, and Providence with future plans for their site just off of Heather Street as well. So just really looking forward to seeing this all come together, and excited to see this project first of all, just being realized in terms of an idea, but really look forward to seeing it take shape on 33rd Avenue. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Do you have to see the chair? Yeah. Councillor Claassen? Great. I'll just be really quick. I just want to thank our team members and the applicant for putting in all the hard work. It's a beautiful project, and for a beautiful reason. And you're making a big difference in a lot of lives, and for families that are going through incredibly challenging times. So thank you very much for everything you do. With that, why don't we put this to a vote? Great, and that passes unanimously. Congrats. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the last item is item number 4, CD-1 836 text amendment, 1075 Nelson Street, formerly 1059 through 1083 Nelson Street. Now, before we begin, does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest? Councillor Kirby-Young, did you want to declare a conflict of interest, or no, later? Okay. Okay, so if the clerk can please read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Brivia Group to amend CD1 Comprehensive Development District 836 to permit the conversion of floor area originally intended for social housing into market rental housing. The social housing obligation of the project will be met through a cash in lieu payment, which will be used to deliver off-site social housing. The amendment would also allow for balconies on the building's east and west elevations to be enclosed and excluded from the floor space ratio calculations for the purpose of meeting passive house standards. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. 11 pieces of correspondence in opposition has been received since referral to public hearing and represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. Now, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 10445 before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. Now, we do have team members from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Now, this item has no registered speakers, so council could opt to waive the team member presentation unless any member would find it helpful. Councillor Kirby-Young. You're okay, so I'm going to advance you. And then Councillor Montague.
That queue is
They're
doing,
gremlins in the
that
system
queue is
today.
doing some funky things today. Happy to move to waive presentation, have it emailed to
Okay,
council.
seconder, anyone? Great. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. All opposed, say nay. Great. We will waive the presentation. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance? No. Okay, great. Are there any questions from council to our team or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? And Councillor Montague, I'm going to advance you because I don't think you have questions, right? Yeah. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I know I printed out some of the public correspondence that we received on this one because we received quite a lot of it, and the theme is all about the waiving of the social housing obligation being met with a cash in lieu payment. I'm paraphrasing on some of the comments, and a concern that that will, given the cost of construction, that the city's ability to deliver that social housing will be waived, and that that was a key component. I'm sort of paraphrasing some of the feedback of the West End plan, that there was an expectation when the West End plan was approved that social housing would be an important component of it in a neighborhood that has some lower incomes in a number of cases and a real need for it. And so I was just struck by how many of these emails we had fulsomely opposing this. So can staff walk through the rationales to why we are proposing cash and we are walking away from what was included or expected originally in the West End plan?
Hi, thank you for the question. Dan Garrison, Director of Housing Policy and Regulation. When we brought in the West End plan, we were in a very different economic environment. The market was very different. The condo market was, I think it would be fair to call it hot, and generated a lot of land lift, a lot of value that was led us to put in place the inclusionary social housing requirements. In the parts of the West End plan where we had pre-zoned different areas of the West End, we actually saw some take up on that, smaller scale projects. In these areas in the Burrard Corridor, we actually haven't seen any of the social housing inclusionary projects move forward. So in September, we brought a policy report to council to seek amendments to the West End rezoning policy to enable the cash in lieu option. And really the reason for that is there was no ability of these projects financially to deliver the social housing requirements that were initially envisioned in the West End plan. We can absolutely understand concerns with that in terms of the goals. I agree with the statements you were making from folks who wrote in about the goals of the West End plan. I would say these are relatively small areas of the West End. We're only talking about area 1 and 2 of the Burrard Corridor. Still, the neighborhood areas of the plan, the only thing that you can rezone for is social housing, and the other areas still
So
require
Dan,
inclusionary housing.
because we didn't get the benefit of the presentation, I
Yep.
actually was curious to see how you would present that. Can you just recap in layman's terms?
Sure.
What is the change in terms of they're still paying for offsite, or they're moving entirely to rental, or like, I'm just looking
Yeah,
for
so the
clarity from-
primary change that's being made here is, or that's proposed, is a reduction in the social housing floor area from 25% of the floor area to 20% to try to enhance or enable viability. And then instead of building that as social housing in the project, that floor area would be shifted to market rental housing. And they would pay a cash in lieu payment of $55 million, which is essentially the estimated cost of construction for the city to build that housing on another site.
And with the current economic conditions in looming tariffs, can we actually build that for $55 million?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, so we might do it in a different way. In this project, the 55 million, you're looking at building all of the housing, paying the entire cost of construction. In an off-site scenario, it actually creates different opportunities. You might leverage that money. You might use that money to partner with other levels of government. So instead of building the 100 units or so that we initially envisioned in this project, you might take 55 million and leverage that into, say, 200, 250 units if it was a capital contribution to a financed project, or even more if you use that as capital contribution, say, into nonprofit development. So there are a number of ways our Housing Development Office can use that funding to actually leverage it and turn it into more housing.
I appreciate that. One quick follow-up then, is there a requirement with those DCLs being collected that 55 million be spent in the West End?
It's not a firm requirement, but when we brought the report forward, council did make an amendment to staff's recommendation in terms of the policy change, and they asked, council directed staff to first prioritize and consider opportunities to deliver this in social housing in the West End. So I actually met with the Housing Development Office this morning to talk about the process for this. They understand that should council approve this and upon payment of the funds, they would first be looking at the opportunities to land this money in this area, and then if those weren't available, they would then have the ability to look
Okay.
at spending this citywide to generate the most.
One last quick question. Could it be the city contributing to someone else building a project to deliver housing? It doesn't necessarily have to be us building it.
Yeah, it absolutely could. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Kirby-Young had a lot of good questions, and we're going to follow up on some of them. Just to clarify, is this the first project to take advantage of the cash in lieu option in this area?
Yes, it's the first project to take advantage of the cash in lieu option that council introduced in this case. There have been other projects in the past where inclusionary requirements were essentially provided as cash instead, but in terms of under the policy amendment that council recently made to the West End rezoning policy, this is the first.
Okay, so the $55 million in construction costs when we're doing these cash in lieu payments, does that include a land cost as well?
It does not include the land cost. It was an estimate of construction costs, both hard and soft costs. Did not include land in this case.
Okay, so would we be looking at using, you mentioned partnerships, would we look at using maybe city land?
Yeah, absolutely, and that was one of the things we discussed with the Housing Development Office, that the city actually on our land already has a number of projects in process, some of which are unfunded or short of funding. So that would probably be the first place to look, is for projects that were already in stream, because we do want to accelerate and allocate the funding as soon as possible should council approve this.
Okay, great. When do we get the $55 million? When does that come?
It's phased in two payments following our deferred CAC policy. So the first payment would be a payment of $20 million at rezoning enactment, and the second payment would be the remainder, the $35 million at, I believe it's demolition permit. I'm looking at Templar. Earlier of demolition permit or 2 years following enactment.
Okay, so it's not like we have to wait till the building to be done to get the money.
Correct.
Okay, that's reassuring. I had a question about the balcony, enclosing the balconies. I see that that's part of this report to help meet passive house requirements. I guess my question is that, does this increase the strata area? Like, are they making larger units through the enclosure of the balconies? You understand what I mean? Are they still like outdoor spaces enclosed, or are they like additional living spaces that they're selling to make the apartments larger?
Thank you for the question. So these would still be considered outdoor spaces separated by sliding glass doors. They still would function primarily as a balcony type space. There really isn't that much change other than them being enclosed. About half of the glazed exterior area would be an operable window.
Okay.
As well.
Okay. But you could habitate them technically. They would be like a solarium. Is that like what it is? I'm just trying to get a sense of like
pass that to urban design here.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks for the question. They would perform and work as an outdoor space with semi-enclosed. Can you hear me? With semi-enclosed glazing.
Okay.
They won't be added to the indoor spaces.
Semi-enclosed glazing.
Yeah.
You mean like
mostly going to be operable with operable windows.
Okay.
And they can be closed and they can be open.
Okay.
But they're going to leave the nature of open space attached to living space.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, there was a mention around the reason the cash in lieu policy was brought in areas 1 and 2 was to help project viability, and those were like relatively small areas in the West End plan. I guess I'm just curious as to like why those two relatively small areas, like why doesn't the inclusionary social housing work in this particular project, but it does work down the street in a smaller project? That's a rental project.
Sure, yeah, thank you. When we looked at the opportunities to do this, these areas 1 and 2 in the West End plan are areas where the inclusionary requirement is in a rezoning policy. In other areas of the West End plan, the inclusionary requirement is actually baked right into the zoning. And so it's a much more complicated change. So we were able to implement the change in this area by amendment to the rezoning policy rather than going through a complex rezoning. We will be looking overall at our approach to inclusionary housing in response to the recent provincial legislation, which introduced the ability for municipalities to adopt inclusionary housing bylaws. And when we do that work, we'll be looking at the sort of full package.
Okay. One last question. Do you anticipate delivery of the below market, well, I guess it's social housing, on a different site to be completed before this building is completed? Like, who's going to be moving in first, I guess is my question. The people into the new strata or the people into the social housing?
I mean, it's a very good question. And it does depend sort of on what the deployment strategy ends up being. It could be through more than one project. So I could see if you were to,
Dan?
if the funds came.
I'm sorry, we're at time.
Sorry, Dan.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no one else, oh, sorry, we haven't main queue, that's the old one? Okay. There are a lot of gremlins here today. Okay, just wanted to make sure to miss anyone. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. We will now hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. So, Clerk, do we have any registered speakers online or in person? Okay. This is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. If there are any additional speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Okay, so we're now going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers to call or come forward. person speaker. Awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councillor Dominetto, can you please turn on your camera? Okay. And besides that, we don't have any additional speakers in the chamber or online. Okay. Yeah. Great. Good evening. So if we can please get your first and last name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver.
Last name is Chu, and I'm the resident right in that building. That's why I just cannot bear it. How could this policy to be changed from social housing to remove social housing? Basically, it's removing social housing from this building. I'm not living there, but I'm poor. I'm hoping to go back to that building. I don't understand why this is happening like this. A few years ago, this rezoning started a few years ago. And from the very beginning, it's 20%, anyway, reduced to 20% after, I'm so sorry, after building would be social housing. What is social housing? Social housing meaning people who are qualified for the social housing could live on those rooms. Now you give the money, offer the money to the city hall or to the city to remove this building, remove the social housing part. I will be kicked out completely. Even in the future, I will not be able to go back. When the building is built up, I'm homeless. How can this be accepted? It's just because it's a beautiful plan, $55 million to the city to rebuild another part of social housing building. I'm not living in this place. 25 years ago, when I looked at this place, I didn't foresee, I was not able to foresee today it would happen like this. The building will be demolished and then build up a high rise and then kick me out of the residence. I'm now poor, I'm now not employed, unemployed, and I'm terminated by the company without cause. And I'm perceived like I have mental health, but I'm very healthy. I don't have mental health, I'm very, very healthy. And because 2021, I was terminated by the company without any cause, it caused me not able to go back to the workforce, and I'm working on myself year by year till last October. And I'm a very, very good worker, and I'm very intelligent, and I'm very great to everybody, to the bosses, to the coworkers, to the customers. I don't know why I could be ended up like this, sent to mental health. I'm so healthy. If you give me a chance to manage a place, I could manage it wonderfully. Manage it as the best place in the world. Why? Why they kicked me out like kicked out a piece of shit? And now, when I was watching this, I couldn't believe it. Look at how beautiful excuses they proposed to the City Hall. Being honest with you, I really want to cry now, but I'm trying to control myself. If you check my history, you go check my history, 18 years ago, what happened to me? I'm such a healthy person, and I'm the best person in the world. And I'm so kind to everybody. I'm kind to my enemies as well. Why? Because I hope the world is a peaceful place. I came to Canada because I believe Canada is a great country. Wouldn't mistreat people like hell, like treated me. I didn't mean to be in the camera because I don't want to be, and I don't have my cell phone to call. And I have no choice because I was told if I don't talk now, I lose the chance. Then I could either kill myself or cry all day long, 24 hours, whole day long. Who's going to save me? Who's going to save me? I'm still trying my best to want to go back to the workforce. So I told people, I am healthy. I have my own way, tons of ways to handle my stress.
And thank you for coming in. I'm sorry, we're well over time.
Thank you very much.
Sorry
I
for
just go against this.
Right.
Regardless how beautiful it is mistreat to certain people, including me.
Okay.
And we are just normal, regular people. And I am now no money, no work, no money. I'm living now under income assistance, and I'm trying to get out of income assistance.
I'm sorry, we're at time. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. So, Clerk, do we have any additional speakers? Nope, online, okay. Seeing no further speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Seeing that there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments? No, thank you. Do our team members have any closing comments?
No close.
No, okay. Does council have any final questions for our team members? All right, Councillor Clausen.
Thanks, Mayor, and I'm sure this is probably what some of the other councillors are going to be asking me. I want to just talk about our tenant relocation policy and as it applies to people who are in the building that this would be replacing. Can we just get a little bit of an update on what kind of work is being done? I realize our speaker was talking about a range of things, but certainly the welfare of people who could be displaced is a really key priority for this council, and I'd just like to hear a little bit more about what we can expect.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. So in the proposal, when we discussed and introduced the cash in lieu option, so that there was an option where there would not be social housing built back into the building, one of the things that council approved was a clear approach to tenant relocation, because the original tenant relocation policy, the speaker was correct, was that anyone displaced by the redevelopment would have the right, should they qualify, to move back into the social housing that was built. Because there will not be social housing built back into the building, if this is approved, there would be rental housing. We've essentially adopted or proposed Broadway-like tenant relocation, which means they could move back in at either the below market rent, similar to Broadway, or at their current rent, whichever is lower. So the same kind of protections that are in place in other areas would be built into this building as well, for all eligible tenants. We have staff here who have been working with the applicant and with tenants to ensure that the tenant relocation and protection policies are implemented.
Okay, and do we have any clear understanding of, I'm sure it's in the report and it's a detail that I probably need to, but just kind of remind us of the displacement that was associated with the existing property, and whether we can have some better sense of typically a company will employ a consultant that will work with them on this one. So maybe just for our own understanding, maybe a little bit more information. So
great. I'll just ask our staff who's working directly on this.
Thank you.
Hi there, Mayor and Council. Michelle Benoit with the project regulation team. So as Dan mentioned, we have this enhanced tenant relocation protection for these tenants, and we are they'll be working with them. They do have a tenant protection specialist that is working with the tenants. They almost have all moved out. So this is from the original application. The tenant relocation plan applies for that original application from 21 when they applied. So only 2 residents remain, and the rest have received their original compensations. And they have now been informed that with the social housing, if that is approved and is no longer taking place, that they have the option to return. So there's a new right of refusal back to the rental building that they'll be building, and they will be at rates of either 20% discount or at the rents of the time that the original application came in, plus allowable cost of living increases.
Okay.
And when we've looked at that, the rents would, for all of the tenants, would be lower than you would see as any kind of market rent for the rents that they were paying.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be listening to my other councillors.
Thank you.
To sort of see, would you like to add some more?
I just wanted to note we are trying to connect with the previous speaker and see if they are an existing tenant who is eligible, and to provide them with information they need if we can.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to clarify, actually, last thing that was said around the right of first refusal to return back to the rental. That's to the market rental that's in the new building if this is approved, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. That would be into the market rental building at the discounted rents.
Okay, so, and what was that below market, 20% discount, is that what you said?
That's correct, or at the rents that they had when the original application came in, they would have it at that rent with the cost of living increases over the years, which, is like 2-3% per year typically. That, or they'd be offered that rent, whichever is cheaper.
Okay, and in the meantime, those two existing tenants, do they get a TRP package as well as?
The regular one when they choose to move out. So the rest have already been compensated.
Okay.
It's been going on for a while, this project, so.
So those two tenants or two existing tenancies that are on site, when they move out, if this is approved tonight and moves forward, they'll get compensated and then they'll also have the right to move back into the building once
That's
it's
correct.
completed at a below market rent. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And then my last question was in response to one of the things the speaker said about the 55 million and kind of, I guess some doubts around that being used for social housing in the future. I just wondering what assurances we can get from staff that that money has to be used for social housing and will be used for social housing. Or below market or whatever you want to call it, but
Yes, thank you.
placement essentially of those units.
Yeah, the funding would, when paid, would come in and be allocated to the Affordable Housing Reserve for use in the VAHEF portfolio through our Housing Development Office, so that it would be earmarked for social housing delivery.
Okay, and then theoretically, could, wherever that money is used, say it's put into a new project to provide social housing units or whatever the case may be, could those actually theoretically become available before this building is complete?
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. Building like this is a complex build, right? So if we had projects that were, say, like smaller wood frame projects in other areas where we were investing in that might take 18 months or 2 years to build compared to a project like this that's going to be a minimum of 3-year build probably, I would estimate. It is possible that you could see social housing built
with this money
completed prior to this building.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying all that.
Great, thank you very much. So did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments? No. Great, so council will now make its decision on this application. So do we have a mover? Councillor Montague, seconded by, I think, Councillor Claassen. Is that you, or were you scratching your nose? All right. Do you want to change that scratch into a second? Thank you very much. Council, is there any discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, why don't we take this to a vote? And that passes, just want to make sure. Yep, that passes unanimously. Councillor Dominato signed off. Great, thank you very much. So we're all good? Great, thank you very much. Congrats. Okay, so that was the end of business. We need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Meisner, second. Was that Councillor Joe? Okay, sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses, so all in favor say aye. Aye. All of those opposed say nay. Great, the motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.